Mr. Gillespie, thank you so much for that introduction. I appreciate it. I'm very thankful and I'm very honored to stand before you today as the Estella Doty Distinguished Lecturer. I would like to first thank Dr. Robinson for inviting me today to come and serve as the speaker. And I'd like to thank him publicly. Dr. Robinson has known me since I've been probably about 21, 22 years old. It's been many years ago. And I used to volunteer here at the museum and be a part of what we call the 20-something club. And every time I would come back home and see Dr. Robinson, and first thing he'd do is greet me with that Colgate smile, and how you doing, and how's it going, and what you doing now, and just has always been very positive, very uplifting, and has always just really been an advocate. And so I want to thank you, Dr. Robinson, for inviting me here today. I'd also like to recognize my family and my friends who have come today to support me and to be a part of this lecture series. My mother, Vivian, my son, Thompson, my sister, Bridget, and my sweetie pie, Jason. I'd like to thank you all for your support, your love, and for always being honest with me and just providing encouragement. Lastly, I'd like to thank the African American Museum of Dallas for serving as a beacon of light, for showcasing our culture, our heritage to the rest of the world. The work that is done here at the museum is very vital, it is very necessary, and it is something that for future generations will be very important. In addition, I would like to recognize my Prairie View A&M University family. Would you guys please raise your hand? Anyone that knows me, you know technically I attended in all of my hours or at Southern Methodist University, but I spent so much time at Prairie View as an undergrad. People still to this day think I actually attended. And my Prairie View family has grown literally since I was the age of 19, and here we are, X number of years later, still together and still supporting one another. So I'd like to thank you as well as my beautiful Sorors and Delta Sigma Theta for coming. Delta Sigma Theta is a what? Lifetime commitment. Okay. Today I have the honor of sharing with you the life of Mrs. Estella Doty. My background is in education, and Mrs. Doty was a public school educator. She was a teacher. She was a principal. She was a leader here in Dallas, actually here in South Dallas, for well over 42 years. And so one of the things that I, as an aspiring leader, and as a person who is charged with preparing future leaders in the field of education, one of the things I like to do, and really it has to do with my research background, is to understand other people's stories, understand their narrative, the things that they experience in their life, and to try and take and extract from that things that I can use to be more successful. And thankfully, in Mrs. Estella Doty, we have a leader who provided a blueprint for emerging leaders to follow. And today I would like to share with you something that I refer to as life lessons. And these life lessons were pretty much doing the research for this particular talk, reading different excerpts about what Mrs. Doty did and was able to achieve during her time here. I came up with this idea and this title for the talk, which I titled "A Woman's Work is Never Done. Lessons Learned from Principal Doty." And again, the information here is really tailored for young emerging leaders, those women, Generation X, Generation Y, who are out of college, maybe have 5 to 10 years work experience, and they're still finding their way. To use Mrs. Doty's example as something that will help you along the way. And I also would like to recognize Mrs. Doty's daughter, Eleanor Doty, is here today, and I would like for her to kind of wave. So I encourage you to sit back and relax and take a journey with me as we delve into lessons learned from Principal Estella Doty. Principal Doty lesson number 1, breaking glass ceilings and kicking in the front door. Mrs. Doty, I'm sure, understood that glass ceilings, or things that are barriers to women advancing in their career, become more pliable when you turn up the heat. As a black female principal in 1958, Principal Doty was something of an anomaly. After the landmark 1954 Brown versus the Board of Education case, African American women were making slow but steady progress in the field of educational leadership. Dubbed statistically invisible by researchers, African American females in our field were most often found at the bottom of the heap. Powerful, prestigious, and lucrative jobs were seemingly reserved for white males, but not for Estella Doty. Despite this ceiling that was placed upon her and women like her by societal norms of the day, Principal Doty fit the profile of a successful woman, educational leader of her day. For starters, she had taught longer and she was older than her male counterparts when she became a principal. She had more experience and she was better educated than her colleagues. Ms. Doty had a master's degree from North Texas State. Mama, that's your alma mater, which she refuses to call University of North Texas. North Texas State. She was also married, and she was more active in her church and her religious activities than her counterparts. Research reveals that African American female administrators during this time frame were more likely to be found occupying the position of an elementary principal in a tough and undesirable school. And we know about tough and undesirable schools within our community. And Ms. Doty actually served as a principal at J.W. Ray. She was at John Henry Brown, and she also was at Phyllis Wheatley Elementary. So when research describes what an African American female principal looked like during this time frame, they basically describe Ms. Doty. Bottom line, lesson number 1, if you want the role, you must look the part. You must fit the profile. Principal Doty lesson number 2. I call this show me the money. Equal pay for equal work has not been a reality for women in the field of education or in many other fields, quite frankly. Women still earn 77 cents to every $1 a man makes. And for African American women, Rob, it's even lower. Try 69 cents to every $1 a man makes for the exact same job. I don't know about you ladies, but I want, need, and deserve my 31 cents. So please don't keep my change. I need it. The statistics seem even more dismal when you take into consideration black women account for 30% of all female-headed households in the United States, with a median income of $18,244. In comparison to single white men, okay, we're talking black women with children making $18,000 in comparison to white males who are single, who make $39,240. That's the median. And folks, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. According to the Economic Policy Institute, they estimate the wage gap will not be closed for at least 30 more years. 30 more years. Ladies and gentlemen, with findings such as these, it is imperative it is absolutely imperative that new millennium trailblazers master what I call the art of the deal. And that art of the deal is called salary negotiation. Ladies, it is absolutely important that you become astute at negotiating your salaries. In her book, Women Don't Ask, author Linda Babcock reveals 4 interesting facts when it comes to women and the art of negotiation. Number 1, women don't like to negotiate. They feel apprehension 2.5 times more than men when it comes to negotiating. Men, however, negotiate 4 times more often than women do. And 22% of adult women, that's 22 million people, say they never negotiate at all when it comes to their salary, even though they recognize that negotiation is both appropriate and necessary. Fact 2, women suffer when they don't negotiate. By negotiating your first salary, an individual stands by, not negotiating your first salary, women stand to lose $500,000 by the age of 60. Women who consistently negotiate their salaries earn at least $1 million more during their career than women who don't. Fact number 3, Colette. Women have lower expectations and lack knowledge of their worth. Many women are just so grateful to be offered the job that they accept what they're offered. And they don't negotiate their salaries. Women often don't know the market value of their work. Do the research, Michelin. Get your money, because just like L'Oreal in Paris says, you're worth it. Fact 4, it's necessary for women to negotiate now more than ever. The percentage of births to single mothers, and again, this is out of all mothers, black, white, Latino, all mothers, it's risen 10% in 1970 to 33% today. In addition, the divorce rate hovers at about 50%. Ladies and gentlemen, the black matriarchy is not a hoax, but an unfortunate reality. Point blank, despite all of your hopes and desires to marry Mr. Right, have children, live in a 2-story house with a white picket fence, it may not happen. And bottom line, you must have a contingency plan. What will you do when life happens and things do not go according to plan? You must stay prepared and you must be ready. Because if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. In addition, I recommend obtaining an additional degree, additional certifications, enhance your career opportunities, keep yourself marketable, and keep yourself current in your chosen field. Another good idea, multiple streams of income. The days of having one job only are very numbered. Case in point, people are amazed to find out that I have a side job. My friends tease me forever. They say, Lisa Kay, you still in school. You know, we're in our 30s now, and I'm still in graduate school working on a dissertation, and you know, they've been in the job force for 7 years now. And they are surprised, but one thing that I learned, having finally gotten out of school, is that it's always important to not put all your eggs in one basket. As we see right here today with the teacher shortage, with teachers being let go, teachers being given the pink slip that no job is safe. So you need to have a contingency plan and a backup in addition to what we call the main thing, your main job, in the event that you have to rely on it. One of the things that I always said I wanted to do was I wanted to go to beauty school. And I remember I was saying this in high school, and my mother was very clear that I would go to college. She said, now you can get your You can get your beauty license, but you also need to have your degree. So that way, you have a trade and you have something you can fall back on. And I haven't done it, but I think I still am going to enroll, maybe in my summer times. But, and I will charge market prices. You know how it is, your friends want that discount. But I do, in addition to serving as professor and coordinator, I also do dissertation consulting advising. So students at other institutions who need someone to look at their work before they give it to their committee, they'll send it to me, and I charge them to look at it. It does come in handy. Principal Doty lesson number 3: bringing home the bacon and frying it up in a pan. As a mother, a wife, and a school leader, I'm sure Mrs. Doty knew firsthand and eventually mastered the delicate art of balancing her personal and her professional life. I can only imagine how even more stressful and demanding balancing work and family was, considering the ever-changing role of the principal during her tenure between the late 50s and the 1980s. Studies on principals during this time period revealed that principals were expected to combine teaching and management skills. The 60s characterized the principalship as a job that could be learned, and administration was viewed as a very highly impersonal activity where feelings and beliefs were not discussed. During the 70s, we saw increased federal involvement in schools, and the principal now is expected to relate well to all people, to have good people skills. And by the time the 80s emerged, the principal was viewed as what we know now to be the instructional leader. But in addition to being the instructional leader, you're expected to also be the problem solver, the resource provider, a visionary, and a change agent. Good grief. When you look at all the professional demands Principal Doty faced, and you couple that with having to keep a tidy home, raising children, providing service to church and the community, spending quality time with your boo, and you start to realize the magnitude of what women leaders have faced and continue to face to this very day. How can you possibly do it all? There are some suggestions for work-family balance that recommend you renew your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and your social, emotional selves. Not 2 birds, but multiple birds with one stone should become a way of life. Principal Doty lesson number 4: you must pay it forward, Dallas. Miss Doty earned awards and honors during her lifetime for service to the community. She received the Silver Fawn Award from the Boy Scouts. The NAACP recognized her as an outstanding educator. The African American Museum honored her and inducted her into the Texas Black Women's Hall of Fame. And she also received the museum's Heritage Award in 1999. Service to others and giving back to the community was the hallmark of Principal Doty's legacy, William, and a practice that new millennium trailblazers must also continue. Whether it's important to you to solve a community problem, advance a worthy cause, or just to develop as a person, volunteering offers many benefits in appreciation for the gift of your time and your expertise. In addition to making a difference in someone else's life and meeting new people, volunteering and giving back improves your health. It builds self-esteem and confidence. And it also communicates to others that you're ambitious, you're enthusiastic, and you care about the community. As Marian Wright Edelman said in her speech, service is the rent we pay for living. Principal Doty lesson number 5. Am I my sister's keeper? Yes, I am. In today's evolving world, mentorship is key. Often women do not have the necessary guidance from female mentors who have climbed the personal and professional ladder of success. Mentors are important because they provide psychosocial functions such as role modeling, acceptance, affirmation, as well as career functions, sponsorship, coaching, networking. Principal Doty was a mentor to many who eventually followed in her footsteps. Elsa Brown Embry was one. Miss Embry was one of Miss Doty's students who later became an educator with a 31-year career. While serving as principal of Phyllis Wheatley Elementary, Miss Doty hired Miss Embry as a substitute teacher. Miss Embry, recalling her relationship with Mrs. Doty, reflected, "She said she was going to train me, and she trained me." Miss Embry said Miss Doty required her to go to school every day and work on something, whether it was substituting, helping with lesson plans, or decorating bulletin boards. When Miss Embry was hired to teach at Frederick Douglass Elementary, she said she received nightly calls from Miss Doty to quiz and encourage her. That's what real mentorship looks like. The legacy of Mrs. Estella Doty and women educational leadership within our city is still alive, and it's still in capable hands. Just right down the street at the historic Lincoln High School, Leslie Swan, just barely 40 years old, became Lincoln's first woman principal. That was just a couple years ago. Around the corner at H.S. Thompson Elementary, when other folks said, "You can't teach poor black kids in the hood," Miss Kamalia Cotton said, "Oh, I'll show you what I can do." She kept that campus's rating at exemplary, and she did one even better. Her campus also became a blue ribbon school. For those of you that don't know what a blue ribbon school is, that is a competitive national ranking that is only given to the best schools in the nation. Today, I say fear not. Black women educators in our community continue pushing forward into the upper echelons of educational leadership. Superintendent Lavetta Levels of DeSoto ISD is one of them. Not satisfied with teaching and administrating, she had the audacity to become the superintendent, what I like to call the HWIC. Ms. Levels is one of few women to ever reach the ranks, but she won't be the last. I close by encouraging you to reflect on the ideals of Mrs. Estella Doty and her inspirational leadership. Future generations of girls and boys are counting on you. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Lisa? And before you give the questions, you know, this presentation is very personal to me. Miss Doty was my sweetheart, and she encouraged me over the years. And I remember when we were struggling to raise the money to build this building, Miss Doty would always come to the board meeting. She said, "Lord, don't let anything happen to that boy." And about 2 weeks before we opened, a couple of weeks before, we were in a board meeting. And I said, you know, on November 13th, we moved into the building. And I said, "Miss Doty, I think the Lord must have heard your prayer." She said, "I mean, I can stop praying now?" I said, "No, stop doing that." But one of the things that distinguishes museums and other institutions is their publishing program always wanted to find the right paper to start our occasional paper series. That is, you will find a lecture or presentation occasionally that you think does what represents the museum. So we're going to use Lisa's presentation today. All right. As the first she'll be able to take it home, do whatever she wants with it, and then we'll publish the paper. And it'll be our first paper, and then when some other genius comes through with we'll do another paper. I don't want to take up your time because I know you have questions for Lisa, but I really want to tell you how much I appreciate your coming. Our threshold for a successful lecture is an attendance of 30. We have more than 30 people here today, so we feel successful. And we aren't as much worried about the crowd or the size of the crowd as we are about the quality of the crowd. So we think we have people here who don't want to be in the crowd. You know, they tell me about Dallas. They say, well, you know, African Americans in Dallas are intellectually void. And you may not want to agree to that, but there's some substance to it. But what you were saying is, I'm not in that group. Right. I'm not intellectually involved. When I was in college, we decided to demonstrate on the president, and a whole lot of things happened. And he came back to campus and closed down the school the next day. But he came back to campus before he put us out. He told us, he said, I was not at my house. I would not have come out and talked to you anyway. Because as far as I'm concerned, you are hoodlums and you're culturally void. And we didn't know what it meant. But this is not the culturally void crowd. This is the intellectually curious crowd. People who want to learn more and do more. I wish it were possible for us, Lisa, to actually have a talk, a conversation about women like Miss Doty. The things you talked about today, you know, and I'm of the age, and a few more of you in here are of my age or close to it. And we just don't have as many Dotys as we'd like to have. And perhaps with this paper, your presentation, and some conversations, we can challenge some people to be an Estella Doty, or Thomas Talbot, or Caesar Toles, or some of those people who mentored people, took people under their wing. And I was a product of that kind of mentoring. And they took us under, they never told us what they were doing. Because we were just smart, I guess dumb enough to do whatever they told us to do. But we benefited from it. And I had mentors who actually put me in places where I really wasn't supposed to be. But I did what I was told to do, and I benefited from it. And I was stronger and started off in administration at a very early age. I was under 30 and I was a dean. But it was because of certain experiences I had had, and I did what I was told to do, and I didn't know everything. You know, and so I think we might be on to something, and maybe, just maybe, we can have an initiative of mentoring or working with emerging female leaders. We'll get to the fellas, but you know, with your education leadership skills, we need to talk about that and see where we can go with that in the spirit of Ms. Doty. So, any questions or conversations for Lisa? Eleanor, thank you for coming.
If we don't have any questions, I have to, yes ma'am.
I don't specifically have a question, I just have a compliment. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. I did know Ms. Doty and worked briefly with her here at the African American Museum as a volunteer, and she was a very distinguished woman. Your presentation has really motivated me at some point. I've been trying to write a book, and I was just telling one of my sorors here today, I needed to get motivated, and you certainly have done that. And like Dr. Robinson said, I would like to echo on something that he said that I was the benefit of too, is during my time, people put you in places and you didn't know that they was putting you there, but it was actually for your benefit. And when I look back over my career in life, I could certainly see that and have a deep appreciation for those people, and or certainly African American women, and also Dr. Roberts, who has motivated me quite a bit too.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge one of my mentors. Many of the people in here know her through her daughter, because we all kind of hang in the same group. But I saw her when she walked in, and she has the distinct honor of being the only teacher to write me up on a discipline referral for insubordination. You talk about putting people in their place. My senior year at Skyline High School. Don't you tear up. This is Dr. Eleanor Lister Rogers. Please wave to the crowd. It is educators like Dr. Rogers who have been instrumental throughout my, elementary, secondary career, who, were not afraid to say, you have potential. You tweak it, hone it, perfect it. And she was one of the first ones, very humbling. She was my home economics teacher, and she cooked, she sewed, she is, we were talking, Dr. Robinson, about classic. That's Dr. Eleanor Lister Rogers, and I thank you so much for coming.
Dr. Thompson, I just want to thank you for just the fact that you are such a strong and lovely leader and woman and educator. I wish that Mama had known you. She would be so proud. And thank you for taking time to be part of this, and for your tribute to my mother. It always amazes me. Well, I'm not amazed, but when people talk about the many things that Mama did, to us she was just Mama. And even though we were proud, of course, of her, it was just fun being her daughter, and it was something that I'm very proud of. But thank you for just who you are and what you represent. And I hope we'll be seeing lots more of you taking time to Prairie and sharing your leadership here with us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Dallas is home. I always just find a way to come on back, and it's a little 2.5-hour drive, so it's always been a pleasure to come back. Yes, thank you. No tickets this trip. Yes. 3 hours, 3.5.
Dr. Thompson, you made reference to the number of women, or you alluded to the number of single households as it relates to African American females. And just so happened I was in Austin last week and was at UT Austin and was at an educational workshop. And one of the things that came up is really what I think is a national epidemic in terms of African American males, young males. They're more likely to go to jail than even finish high school, yet alone, get into college and graduate. But I'm just thinking, I know that this is a Women's History series and we're honoring Ms. Doty, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts. I really think the federal government needs to step in and do more. I don't know how we get the brightest of the bright collectively, kind of like on one accord to address the issue, but I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are about that.
I grappled with incorporating the incident with Trayvon Martin, the teenager in Florida who was shot, walking home, Skittles in his hand, iced tea, but he was deemed suspicious, and a very overly aggressive vigilante neighborhood watch captain shot him. The man is still alive. And I looked at that incident. I looked at some other incidents. One of the things about my background is communication, and it's media, and it's looking at how the media portrays our images to the public. And there's another incident that's really growing right now. It's called Coney, K-O-N-Y, 2012, which these great white men came up with in an effort to capture this African male predator who is taking young African children, arming them with guns, and basically taking film, this 30-minute film that they created, this documentary, is to make sure that everyone in the world sees this, black man who is taking these children and making them into soldiers of misfortune. And so what I say in response to, the struggle to keep our black boys safe is that as an educator, as a mother, that it is our entire communities. It should be our charge to create think tanks, to create forums within our community, to protect and to help our boys understand the dynamics of what it is to be a black male in society, that they will be targeted simply because of how they look, and to expose them and to prepare them. And I think that one of the things that is a charge where I work at Prairie View, we have the African American Male Initiative. We are aggressively recruiting young college-age boys to enter the teaching profession because we know that they don't see images of black men in the classroom. As a matter of fact, I have Rob Perry, who is a former junior high school teacher, who started, it's called Men's Reading. What was it called?
Men reading.
Men Reading, and he invited black men throughout the entire Dallas metroplex to come in and read with junior high school age boys at Valstory Middle School. So I think the conversation, and from my viewpoint as a researcher, to make sure that I present and that I impart the information so that the community is armed with the information and can use that to set up programs and to inform the boys themselves, have those real conversations. A lot of times we don't feel that children understand what we're talking about as grown folk and some of the things that affect them, but they really do. If we have the capacity to talk with them about, PS3s and Xbox and all this other stuff, surely we have a way of communicating to a 7-year-old boy what his behavior is going to be perceived and what it looks like when he gets out in the real world. And I think we should do it sooner, age 7, age 6, and just start preparing them. One of the things that I do know is that there are several organizations, you're a part of the 100 Black Men, that have taken this on, but I think that as women, because we are the ones who are bearing these boys, we are their first teachers, that we have to start in the home and start training them and start telling them how it is, uncensored.
Thank you.
Dr. Thompson, back to one of your first points in the lecture in regards to the fine art of negotiation. Coming up, could you just elaborate a bit more on that, how you acquired some of those skills, if you will, in order to better, for the rest of us here in the audience, to take some tidbits away?
Very good. I am technically a part of Generation Y because of the year that I was born, and I came up with computer technology and things such as Google. It's second nature to me. So my very first job ever was as a teacher, and just like the literature says, I didn't negotiate. They offered me $25,000 and I was happy. I didn't think, what's the average salary for a teacher in Dallas? And I came into the classroom with the masters. But they had a system where they gave you an additional $1,000, but I wasn't aware that I could ever negotiate my salary. So what I did and what I encourage my mentees to do is to, number one, do the research on the position that you are going to accept. Because when you get the offer, that really means the ball is in your court, and you have more leverage to negotiate before you accept the position than after. Know what the average salary is, know what attributes and what qualities you bring to the position that may not be a part of the job description. You've had, experience doing this. That adds value, and that increases your chances of getting what you want. So doing the research is number one. Secondly, not being afraid to ask. What's the worst that can be said? No, we can't do it. But if you don't ask, you will never have the opportunity. And more importantly, If you work for a public institution or a state institution, salaries are public information. So you look and you see what everybody who's doing your job is making. For example, my salary is very public. You can go to texastribune.org and Google me and pull it up. Everybody who is a state employee. And so when I look at all my colleagues, male and female, and I look at all of our levels of education, we all have doctorates, how many years I've been in the job force, those sorts of things, I start to weigh and I come up with a formula of what I think I need to be making, in spite of what they say is the salary range. Because we always know that the salary range can go up and it can go down. But it depends on you having the gumption to ask for more. Now, you can't win in this situation if you don't have the experience, if you don't have the expertise. But if you do, you offer something in addition to what they're asking for, and they want you, then that is your golden ticket to make sure you get the best salary that you can. Because every time you get an increase, every time you get that raise, it's going to be based on your starting salary. And if you get a low salary, let's just say, $20,000. Okay, I just threw it out there because I don't want to offend anybody saying what I perceive to be a low salary. You have a $25,000 salary when you could have negotiated for 32. Then every raise you get in order to, peak at whatever the top figure is, before you retire, you have denied yourself the opportunity to increase your salary exponentially just by getting the highest starting salary that you can. Now, the good thing is this: if you haven't done it in your position, when and if you move to that next position, you always have the opportunity to do that. But you have to know what that range is. You have to know what you offer, and you